Today's episode is about befriending your ego as a path to authenticity. So join us, especially if you are someone that finds that your emotions feel out of control. You find yourself shaking or you start crying and you have no idea why. This is the episode for you. So let's get started.
Welcome to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, place for the strong, sensitive, spiritual seeker to recognize the perfection of your human journey as a pathway to remembering your divinity. I am Michelle Bursell. As a psychotherapist and priestess, my work is to bridge both the emotional and spiritual worlds through proven and grounded frameworks that support you to live in the wholeness you already are. For over the past 2 decades, I have supported people from all around the world, as well as Fortune 500 companies, to dissolve the divisions within them and live with greater empowerment and love. This podcast is an exploration of the paradoxes that befuddle us as we live our lives being both human and divine. Together, you and I, along with other experts, will navigate integrating psychology and spirituality, divine feminine and the divine masculine, the darkness and the light, to create greater sacred union from within. I believe through your remembering that you are innately divine, that you will allow yourself to more openly shine. So let's get to it, because your unique light is needed more than ever.
Hello and welcome back, my strong, sensitive, spiritual people. I'm so excited to be back with you. And today we are talking about befriending your ego as a path to authenticity. And this has jumped out to me because I feel like so many people are saying, "Oh, just be authentic, just be your authentic self." And I love it that people just throw this out like it's no big deal. And they're forgetting about all the ego layers that get put upon us throughout our lives, that this is part of our human journey, that when we're infants and children and we are functioning and doing our best during a time when we are not able to protect ourselves emotionally, physically, when we're reliant on others, and we're navigating life and friends and parents and all their emotional stuff that they've got going on, that like we're not going to have these ego layers that build up. Well, I'm going to give you the authentic truth that that's not as simple as people want to make it seem. It seems like it should be the most natural thing to be our natural selves. And I feel that our journey is really about knowing ourselves. And so the reason why it's a journey and the reason why it's a growth journey is because our persona gets manipulated by ways that we think we ought to be in order to feel loved, to feel accepted. And so, and this can even happen from culture and cultural norms and what the culture believes is the best aspects of a person to be demonstrated, right? And as I've shared before on a previous episode where our emotional sensitivity is a strength, if you grew up like I did, our sensitivity was not seen as a strength, right? It was something that I was told over and over. You got to toughen up. You can't wear your heart on your sleeve, and you can't show everybody every bit of emotion that you feel. And while I think that's still a message that we receive, I think we're moving towards this understanding that, wow, being emotionally sensitive allows me to connect with with others at a much deeper level. Like that it's because of emotion that we get to feel and experience one another. And we're craving that, especially as our lives get less connected overall, where we're not connected to nature. We're not connected to each other. We're holed up in our offices and in front of a computer, and we're missing that connection. And so befriending your ego as a pathway to authenticity is a way that we can authentically become authentic rather than, yeah, I'm just, naturally my authentic self. I wish it was the case. It's not for me, at least, maybe for some of you. I don't know. But people that I've worked with around the world, no one has been able to get around this human tendency. And so it's really understanding that when we can befriend our ego, that is how we can actually get to know ourselves better. Now, this can be confusing because the ego is a part of our false self, right? And our false self keeps us separated from ourselves. It keeps us separated from knowing ourselves. The reason why it can be helpful is because it's an indicator of when we are feeling off because our ego gets triggered. So when I speak of the ego is not just this big puffed up version of ourselves. Our ego and its expression can show up as underconfidence and overconfidence. So I think when people think of ego, they always think of the puffed up, I'm overly confident, I've got it all together, I know what I'm doing. That's just one version. And another version of that is feeling inadequate, underconfident, the victim, that you can't get anything right, that you're not good enough. And for me personally, I could swing back and forth from these different expressions of the ego, depending on the situation. And so when we can see that within ourselves, that's when we have that opportunity to recognize, yeah, that's not me. This, fake it till you make it, show this confident version of myself. That used to be what we considered power, I think. And where we're really moving to is vulnerability. Obviously, the version of ourselves where we don't see ourselves, where it's that version where we're not good enough and we just don't see that we have any ability to make a change in our life or be effective in our life. That's our ego too, because that's not the truth of who you are. And so being vulnerable with that part of yourself as well is so significant because you can't stay there. If you stay there, that's when you're going to find yourself depressed, anxious, unhappy, unfulfilled. And that is not the truth of who you are, especially as someone who is sensitive and spiritual. We want you to be able to tap into your inner strength to know the truth of who you are, because the truth is you are needed and you were created this way exactly because once you really know how to connect to yourself authentically, as we're all learning to do, myself included, to continue to do that, when you do that, you're going to connect with others in a way where they just feel seen and understood by you, and the love that it has taken for you to be vulnerable with yourself will come forward as compassion towards others. And that's when we are not just a gift to others, but where that compassion just creates expansion in all parts of our life. Because I think we're all looking for that compassion from one another. We're looking for that compassion within ourselves. And so today we are going to do that. We are going to befriend the ego. And so the opportunities to befriend your ego, and again, we're going to do this because we want to know ourselves better. And the more we know ourselves, the more we can take off this extra weight that we tend to carry and these extra veils and masks that we put on ourselves, and we don't even know that we're doing it. And this to me is the beauty of befriending your ego, because when we go there to that place within ourselves that we have been told to feel ashamed about and to ignore and deny, that when we actually go there, that is our power to see ourselves and to bring love to aspects of ourselves that haven't been seen, haven't been understood. And I hope, because you are my strong, spiritual, sensitive people, that you don't feel like I've done that and now I'm over over it. And if you do, it's probably your ego telling you that, because from my experience, this is an ongoing journey. Like, as long as we're here, we're evolving and allowing more of ourselves to be seen. And so this is certainly an ongoing journey that I am on. I'm always surprised by the power of our egos in our lives to hide ourselves from ourselves, and the beauty that gets revealed when we go towards that which we've been told is shameful about ourselves, or part of ourselves that we shouldn't receive and have as a part of the wholeness of who we are. So, how do we get there? How do we get to this place of befriending? Well, it's in all those opportunities that we don't want to deal with. When you're triggered by someone, when you're feeling stuck, when you become emotionally overwhelmed, your body takes over, you start shaking in front of someone, you start crying. Oh my gosh, I have been there. I have been there. So, one of the ways that I've been there is, oh my goodness, one of my first jobs, like real jobs after college, I was working at a bank, and it wasn't a great position and I wasn't paid well, but I really took pride in my work and I really tried to do my best, give my best. And I felt like I was doing a pretty good job, right? And showing up and learning things quickly and so forth. And I go to my job review, and the first thing the manager says to me is like, you are doing a really good job, but I just got to tell you, like, I don't know if you're good at paying attention to detail. The other day, so, boss asked you to cut the tags off of the new chairs in the lounge area of the bank. And I forgot. And I kid you not, like, I am in my first review, professional job review. I thought I was going to get the, good job, you're doing amazing. And I'm getting told that I'm not doing a good job because I didn't remember to take the tags off. And I just felt really unseen, really underappreciated. And the tears started flowing. And this manager, I'm sure it was a woman, I definitely shocked her. And yeah, so I made her feel bad, and perhaps that was a part of my unconscious intention. But honestly, like, I just didn't know how to handle it. And so the opportunity has been for me to continue to go back to that feeling of how that feeling of feeling unseen, of feeling unrecognized, and feeling picked on, where that stems from. So this is what we can do in any way that we are triggered, but especially when things feel out of control for you, out of control emotionally, you're lashing out and you don't know why the intensity of the emotion is so exaggerated for the situation. You want to go back. I mean, way back. When our body starts shaking, when our tears start flowing, we want to go back. And we go back to when was the first time I remember experiencing these feelings? So for me, when was the first time that I remembered feeling unseen, picked on, ridiculed? And of course, I have some memories about this. And so when I was bullied as a child, I got bullied in two ways. I got bullied physically with someone in my family physically being rough with me. And I also was bullied emotionally, where I was picked on. Someone was being very hard on me quite often about little things. And so when I was a child, that I would cry because I could not handle the situation. I couldn't, when someone was being too physically rough with me, I was the smallest and could not do anything to protect myself physically except cry. And then an adult would come in and get involved and support me where I could not support myself. And when an adult that was being emotionally crossing a line with me, they didn't realize they were emotionally crossing a line with me until I started to cry. And so this was the indicator, although they would never admit it, like that they would never say, "Oh gosh, sorry, I'm being too hard on you." They would stop, and then they would tell me to stop being so sensitive, but at least they would stop. And so tears became the mechanism to get the behavior from somebody else that I didn't want happening to stop. And so if you look at some of the ways that your emotions might get out of control, maybe you lash out in anger. Well, you were probably lashing out in anger as a tactic to be able to stand up for yourself. Or maybe you also cried. I can't tell you, by the way, how many women I've worked with where they've had a work scenario where they started crying. And so if that's you, I here I am raising my hand again. Yeah, that's me as well. And it happens to us because for these reasons where it was a way to protect ourselves. And so what do we do about this so that it doesn't become our go-to when these feelings get re-triggered again, right? Because we're still going to have moments moving forward where someone unintentionally makes us feel ridiculed. In my case, the trigger is feeling ridiculed, feeling picked on, feeling bullied by another. And again, it may not be intentional, but how do I want to be when this happens? And so the only way for us to really get to the space of being able to work with this energy rather than fight it. The worst thing you can do is fight it. And this is what I've always told my clients when they get embarrassed. And I've worked with men as well where they got embarrassed because they would get in a fight and start shaking. And, that does not show a sense of strength. But the more you try to hold that off, the more your body takes over because you're basically saying, I'm not listening to you. I'm going to ignore you. And your body is saying, oh no, I am in a state of overwhelm. And if you don't pay attention to me now, I'm going to make sure you pay attention to me. So the best thing you can do is to allow that feeling to come forward and say, I've got you. This is the shortcut to all of it. You can say, I've got you. Okay. And just doing that and not ignoring it and not shaming it and not trying to push it away is automatically just going to bring okay, it might not all the way, but it's going to help. And the more we can start to look at when we go back to that feeling, what was really going on for me and what was I afraid of? This is when we can start to rework this experience so that we feel more empowered. So in this situation for me, my understanding, what did I make the situation mean? So when we get triggered, we want to go back to what am I feeling? And then we want to say, what is the situation from the past, as far back as I can remember from the past, that is similar to this one? And then number 3 is, what is the conclusion I made back then about myself that is no longer accurate? So we really want to go back and understand the meaning that it had for you back then, and then understand that this is not your truth. It's called recapitulation. and we can recapitulate how we see and understand that scenario now. So back then, the message was I couldn't stand up. I can't stand up for myself. And that was absolutely true for who I was as a child. I did not have the psychological knowingness that I do now on how to deal with someone who's emotionally bullying. And I physically could not stand up for myself. I couldn't get away from the person who was physically being too rough with me. And so it was true then. But with the recapitulation, we can understand that now the truth is I can stand up for myself. But how do we want to do that in a way that is authentic to ourselves? Because where our ego can go wrong with this is that we can say, oh, yeah, I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to do it just like the bully or the person who hurt me did it to me. And then we become the bully within ourselves. We become the bully unintentionally to others. See, this is when people, if we're not willing to go within, this is when people will say, like, these patterns that get passed along from one generation to the next, and people have no idea why. It's because it's those times when we're most vulnerable that we don't want to look at it, that we go into defense mode and we're either going into old defenses that minimize us, or we try to over exaggerate, overly armor up, and overly protect ourselves. And so with this recapitulation, we get to see what does this mean for me of standing up for myself and standing in my truth? And so for me, it was that I could speak my truth compassionately. And so, of course, how the universe works is that as you're working through this and working through it and working through it and all these layers, that you're going to have more and more experiences with this in order that you really get it. Well, many years later, when I started off in the corporate world, so gosh, that's been 7, 8 years ago now, when I started off, I was invited to speak at a round table in front of HR professionals. And I was sharing with them all that I did, and I was really excited by it. And there was a lot of people that were super excited by it too. And then there was this one guy that stood up and he just started sharing with me all the things that were wrong in my presentation. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just felt myself starting to shrink in my chair. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And the tears started welling up. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? How can I be authentic with him? And so I took in a deep breath and I told my ego and my inner child, I'm like, I'm here. I know we're hurt. I know we feel picked on. We worked hard on this. And this guy was just like, I mean, like point after point, sharing with me all of this. But through this work, what I also understood was, even though his approach lacked emotional intelligence, he was trying to help me. And so I took a breath and I just said, wow, that was a lot. I feel a bit overwhelmed by everything that you shared. If there's one takeaway that you want me to gain from what you shared, what is that? And then we got to it. And it was good. It was good. Like my slides needed some help. There was just a different way that corporations deal with slides that I had no idea. So it was actually really helpful. But I did really have to take a breath. And I had to remind myself that this person isn't mean. This person isn't trying to cause me harm. I think his way of trying to support someone just was not a match for how I like to receive support and feedback, right? And so these are the great things that we can learn about each other throughout our communications. But to get there, we have to be willing to go within. And And so what I want to say is that I get it. I know how scary it is to be vulnerable, to go towards our ego and deal with the aspects that are coming up, especially when we're tying it way back to something that hurt us. But this is when we're going to feel more empowered, more truly authentic and truly confident, because those things from the past, or those things that can still hurt us now, they're just not going to hurt us in the same way. And that's when we'll be able to see, like, wow, that's pretty cool. I've been able to grow emotionally in that way. At least I did that time, right? And there may be a time when the tears are out of control and they come out even though I don't want them to. And that's okay as well, because it's going to be an opportunity for me to discover what else there is that's been hidden. And what I know for all of us is the more we are willing to go to those places that we fear that we are going to get ridiculed for, that we fear makes us unlovable and unworthy and not enough, is that this is exactly where we find the gold. And what I love about this time of year is that for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're getting darker and darker and darker. And it's a beautiful opportunity to be quiet with ourselves, to go in front of a fire, do some journaling, reflect on how far you have come, and if there are any other aspects of your ego that need your befriending. And with that, what I believe you'll find is that every challenge you face and you allow yourself to be more and more vulnerable with that, that you're going to find your ability to root for yourself, to be there for yourself, is that people are going to be rooting there for you as well. Or they're going to say, oh my goodness, I feel seen and understood in a way that no one has been able to connect with me around, right? Because they've had their we're walking around with our own defenses of having it together and having, confidence, or I'm authentic, when really we're just humans all trying to do our best, all trying to remember our truth and the love that we are. And sometimes we're good at it and sometimes we forget. And that is the journey. That's the journey. And so the blessing in all of this is that if we're willing to do this, you will feel freer and freer and freer. And that is exactly how we get to this place of living authentically, because we can tolerate and not even just tolerate, but tolerate, yes, tolerate the times when we are showing an aspect of ourselves that feels vulnerable, and receive it and know that with being the strength that it takes to go towards that vulnerability strengthens you in ways that allows you to be seen in your authenticness that your ego wants you to stay separated from. And so this is the time where you can receive this aspect of you and understand how it's asking you to rewrite old stories that no longer work for you, and how to rewrite them as the person that you are today. And the more you can do that, the more you are going to feel in greater and greater alignment with yourself. And this, to me, is when life gets fun. Life starts lining up for you in very magical and beautiful ways. So please know that you are on this miracle. It's a miracle that we get to be on this growth journey. It's a miracle that our minds can allow us this self-reflection to see our ego and understand the different aspects of ourself that aren't our truth and that really are our truth. And as long as we are alive, there is more to uncover. And what a gift you are that to uncover. What a gift you are to uncover. And what a gift you are to others who get to see you uncovered. Because I know in that uncovering, there's more and more love and beauty, joy and expansiveness to who you are. And so let's continue on this journey to continue to strip free of the ego layers so that you can feel love and gratitude for all of you, because that is when life just gets really juicy and fun. And I want that for you. So, and I want that for you and for the people in your life as well, because I know they'll feel it from you as well. You'll feel it within yourself, your relationships with your partner, your children, your friends. You'll feel it in your work. It's just, we want all this juiciness for ourselves. So we got to allow ourselves to be open to all aspects of ourselves to receive it and ultimately befriend our ego so that we can go to that place of vulnerability, and in vulnerability become more and more authentically ourselves. So yeah, be authentic, but I'm not going to be flippant about be authentic, because we're going to be authentic in the best way that we know how in each moment. And I know that by you befriending your ego, you're going to really love authentically without pushing the real you. And that is what I'm excited for. So when your ego gets triggered, rather than feel ashamed or try to hide it, allow yourself the gift of being vulnerable and see what authentic part is ready to come forward and shine brightly, because that is the real you. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for joining me. I hope you remember that, and just know within your heart that that you are divine perfection as you are, and there is nothing to prove, just to remember. I'll see you next time.
I am so honored you have joined me today. If you enjoyed the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, subscribe so you don't miss any of our power-filled episodes. Also, if you know another who is strong, sensitive, and spiritual and wants to dive deeper into emotions and ancient wisdom so they too can create profound peace and fulfillment from within, please share this podcast. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.